Hi everybody, update time again. Here I am with my start of the summer haircut. We're already halfway through another year. How strange it is that even June feels like it's very early on in this year. Hmm. I know that my four devoted commenters and watchers on YouTube do tend to keep up with me on other platforms on social media. So, full confession time. I don't know exactly how my presence on YouTube is going to continue, especially since my more recent videos, including the lengthier ones and the video essays, haven't gotten a lot of attraction. My Wishbone video, the last one that I produced, has been out for over a month and still hasn't passed 100 views or even more than 2 likes. Now, I have been an adamant defender of not letting the view count be the determining factor to one's reason for making videos, but with everything else going on in my life and how I had to spend my time, I will say that I have no intention of quitting YouTube because I love sharing my favorite pieces of media, talking about at length about certain subjects I feel very passionately about, and inviting interactions with all of you guys. It's just that with all the time and effort it takes into putting together these videos, even if they're not super polished, I just don't know when I'll be making my next one or what it'll even be about. That's something that's just currently up in the air for the time being. However, in the meantime, I have just finished editing part 3 of Dylan Perez's video, his part 3 of his Disney discussion videos, and I'll provide a link for that in the description below if you're interested in checking that out. Fortunately, after the past year where things haven't been looking up for me so much as I have addressed in these update vlogs, things do feel like they're starting to turn around for me. I'm feeling a lot better, especially mentally. I'm creating a lot more as an artist, as well as getting into more commissions. I have found a therapist who works for me and one whom I can afford, and things at my current job are in retail are better for me, at least mentally and emotionally. Of course, I'm still looking for a current day job that I feel I am better suited to, but I'm currently in a better state that I don't feel as desperate to get out of my current job as quickly as possible. One thing I thought I might bring up as the subject of this video is a thing that I spoke to my therapist about that's really helped me. That's really been helping me alter the course of my life emotionally and mentally. It's one of and it's regarding how one of my personal and spiritual goals in life is to love myself unconditionally. Now, I know that I'm not alone on my struggle with that. In my case, I do feel that part of that had to do with my upbringing and growing up in a family of high expectations, and from a young age to going far in life, I would need to set high expectations for myself. Or I would constantly be living in this ever lingering sense of almost hating myself after any time I had fight with my family, and reassurance slash reminding myself that every family or close relationship involves fights like this, but that just never seemed to help no matter how much I repeated it to myself. Well, at least in certain instances. And well, I also grew up in a Christian household and I went to Christian school. And you know how certain extreme religious group abide by teachings that we are born sinners or that you must follow this, this, and this to be a devoted Christian and make it into God's kingdom and all that. Granted, my environment was not like one of those extreme cases of a Christian household, thankfully, but like anything else, the teachings I grew up on still had room for improvement, as they still had tendency to cloud my perception of what loving myself was all about. Loving and accepting myself, more specifically. As much as I just wanted to let go and love myself and accept everything about myself for the longest time, there's always been something or other that has been holding me back from truly being able to. Some of it may have had to do with some societal expectations, like how men are expected to be strong, to not cry or be overly emotional, and to deal with problems on their own, however unhealthy that may prove to be. Another part of it may have been that I was just afraid that loving and accepting myself might lead me down the path of slippery slope of indulging myself and putting guy blinders on, and not caring what others think about me to the point where I get lost in my own head and start daydreaming my way through life to myself, to my own and others' detriment. So for these reasons, I might unintentionally or unconsciously beat myself up internally if ever I fell short of anything or let someone down. And I guess on the surface, I would try to project a sense of confidence or even convince myself of just how confident I was as a mask for this constant underlying fear, or maybe even as a distraction from said fear, that I might end up losing touch of what I wanted most in the world, missing critical opportunities, hurting or driving people away, even driving people away I care about, and even becoming somebody I'm not proud of. I guess you could say that's why films like recent films from Disney and Pixar, like Turning Red and Elemental, those were ones that resonated with me on very personal levels. And for all the complaints people throw around about how Disney's modern animated films are too much about generational trauma and all that, maybe if I have something to say about it, maybe those are the kinds of stories we do need. In a society where people are struggling with self love while still trying to maintain relationships with our families and friends, maybe these are the kinds of lessons that we need repeated over and over and over to us until we finally break the toxic cycle instilled by societal expectations and embrace our individuality and identity so that we love ourselves fully. But back to myself, though, one thing I just could never really figure out was how do I love myself enough to both afford myself both the drive to keep pushing myself along the right path and the kindness to really guide myself. Well, for one thing, specific example, one thing I had trouble figuring out is how do I fully reassure myself that I am not a bad person in instances where I end up hurting someone and they walk away not forgiving me, or more accurately, depending on instances, without reconciling me. I know and respect that other people have the right to walk away from me and not want me in their lives anymore, but the most hurtful thing about all of that is that I am the one person whom I can't walk away from. Yeah, I have to live with myself like through all my faults for everything. So that's been kind of a troubling thing. But when I when I brought this up to my therapist, what she said was to forgive yourself for your wrongdoings, even when others don't, without letting yourself get caught up in your head, is treated like forgiving people who wronged you, but didn't apologize for it. Now, full disclosure, that is something that I've also been wrestling with over the past year. I've had no shortage of angry outbursts in private, and I mean full on just like full on monster mode, triggered by memories of people who've been nasty to me from several walks in life. Sometimes customers at work, sometimes my boss at work, sometimes even family members. I recognize that this was more than really that some of my internal reactions, what I was feeling was really more than what was warranted, but the feelings were there just the same, and as much as I tried, I just couldn't figure out how to let them go. They would always just come back to haunt me no matter what I tried. So since I last saw my therapist, something that significantly helped me with that, helped me to be able to adopt that as a practice, is this video created by the YouTube channel Mended Light, which is co-hosted by Jonathan Decker, who also co-hosts the channel Cinema Therapy. They recently uploaded a video as part of a series about talking about recovering from trauma, which is just applicable. This a case is like this is just as applicable as trauma brought on by someone who has wronged you in some way. I'll link the video for below if you want to check that out too. But as Jonathan and Alicia put it, there's a difference between victimization and victimhood. Things happen to us all the time, but our true freedom lies in how we react to it. Now, in the moment, it doesn't feel like that, like when we're basically in survival mode and our brain is basically going into flight, fight, or freeze response. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that he says as a part of forgiving yourself is for things that have happened to you while other people are mistreating you is not beating yourself up when you feel tempted to think, why didn't you react when you're tempted to think in hindsight, why didn't you react to things differently? Because when I heard him put it like that, I started to consider that maybe the instances where my rage was through the roof, thinking back to these people who part of me just would have loved to tell them off for messing with me like this, um, I started looking at it differently and thinking, am I more angry at them or am I more angry at myself for letting them push me around rather than standing up for myself? Rather than being the better person, was I just being a wimp? Ultimately, regardless of how justified we may be in feeling certain ways about certain scenarios, what's more important to ask is, how is the way we feel really benefiting us? To forgive others is not to excuse what they did to you, nor is it even necessarily reconciling. It's simply releasing all forms of anger and resentment for yourself first and foremost, because doing otherwise is what keeps you in the victimhood mindset. As Jonathan and Alicia in the Meted Light video puts it, to forgive yourself for things that happened to you is to forgive the part of yourself that was victimized, which means letting go of blame. Blame is judgment, and like with anyone else, we can't love ourselves and judge ourselves at the same time. They also say that it is okay to feel some anger in the midst of all of it. There's no forgiveness without anger. Strange as that may sound, sometimes you may just want to forgive someone right away because you don't want to bear any ill will towards them. But first, you do need to acknowledge that there is something there that you need to forgive in the first place. If you're not allowed to say that you were hurt by something, how can you forgive? Because how can you acknowledge that there is something to forgive? So I would say that has helped me somewhat, or at least helped me relocate the road that I want to go on. No, I think that's one thing. I think that's pretty much all I have to say for right now. I hope that you have a great day. And again, I don't know exactly when I'll be making my next video, but I'll be sure to stay in touch with all of you and let you all know when that happens and what that's going to be, or give at least give you a hint of that. So until then, take care, and I hope that you're doing well.